I was 4 when my sister and I both drowned. I was the only one who came back. And for that, my mother has hated me ever since. In the dead of night, she would loom over my bed with a handful of candy-colored pills, trying to force my mouth open. Each time, my father would stop her just in time. So I grew my hair long. I wore faded floral dresses. I tried to become a perfect echo of my sister, just so my mother would grant me a single glance. It worked, until 3 years later, when Mom got pregnant again. She said it was Lily, my dead sister, coming back to us. I was so happy for her. Lily was coming home. That was wonderful. It meant this family no longer needed a replacement. I found the little bottle of candy Mom had tried to give me all those years ago. In the quiet of my room, I swallowed them all. A bitter powder coated my tongue. I doubled over, gagging, a wave of acid and saliva burning my throat. These were the pills Mom had hidden in the deepest corner of her closet 3 years ago. Back then, she would sit on the edge of my bed late at night, her eyes hollow, and whisper, "Why won't you just die?" Now I was finally making her wish come true. I was still wearing the little floral dress, its hem frayed and worn. It was one of Lily's old ones, and it had been too small for me for a long time. But Mom said I had to keep wearing it. It was the only way I could look like her. From the living room, I heard my mother's laugh, a gentle, warm sound I'd never heard directed at me. She was stroking her belly, talking to Dad. "The doctor said it's definitely a girl this time. See how calm this pregnancy is." Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Soon, I'll never have to look at that little curse's face again." I wanted to see her smile one last time. I padded to the doorway. Dad saw me first, and his brow furrowed. "Noah, why aren't you doing your homework?" His gaze flickered over my floral dress and then darted away, as if the sight stung his eyes. Mom turned. The smile on her face froze, then vanished. "Who said you could come out? And your hair's gotten short again. Didn't I tell you to grow it long, just like Lily's?" She marched over, her finger jabbing hard against my forehead. "You're nothing but trouble. When Lily is born, if you dare to even look at her the wrong way, I will break both your legs." I flinched back, a throbbing ache blooming where she'd poked me. The candy in my stomach began to dissolve, sending waves of fire through my gut. The pain was so sharp it bent me in half. Dad started to move toward me, but Mom threw out an arm to block him. "Don't touch him. He's probably just faking it for attention." I bit my lip to keep from crying out and shuffled back to my room. Each step was agony, like a blade churning inside me. A strange numbness was creeping into my limbs, and my hand trembled as I gripped the doorframe. I collapsed onto my bed, my body beginning to twitch uncontrollably. The door creaked open. It was Dad, holding a glass of warm water. He set it on my nightstand and hesitated for a long moment. "Noah," he finally said, "your mother, she's not herself with the pregnancy. Try not to take it to heart." I tried to shake my head but could only manage a weak groan. His face began to blur, splitting into two. Dad sighed, a heavy, defeated sound. He just pulled the blanket over me. "Get some sleep. You'll feel better tomorrow." He closed the door on his way out, plunging the room into silence. I reached under my pillow and pulled out the old rag doll. It had been Lily's favorite. The fabric was worn smooth and shiny from my constant care. Mom said it was Lily's, and I had to protect it. The last time a kid at school tried to take it, I fought tooth and nail, letting him beat me until I got it back. My vision grew hazy, a dark fog creeping in from the edges. I hugged the doll tight against my chest and closed my eyes. "Mom, Lily's coming back. You won't have to suffer looking at this replacement anymore. It's better this way." Slowly the pain faded away. I felt weightless, like a dandelion seed caught on the wind, floating gently toward the ceiling. From up here, I could see the small body on the bed clearly. The floral dress was a crumpled mess around him. His face was ashen, his lips a bruised, unnatural violet. A smear of dried bile stained the corner of his mouth. He was still clutching that old rag doll. Mom pushed the door open, but she didn't look at the bed. She walked straight to the desk and picked up Lily's photograph, polishing the glass with her sleeve. "Oh, Lily," she murmured. "Mommy went to look at new cradles for you today. Do you think you'd like pink or blue?" She turned to leave and accidentally kicked the leg of the bed. Her gaze finally fell on me, her brow creasing with annoyance. "Still sleeping? The sun's up. Get up and make breakfast. Do you want me and your new sister to starve?" I drifted in front of her, trying to speak, but she couldn't hear me. She just shuffled out of the room, humming a lullaby under her breath. From the living room, I could hear Dad whisking eggs and Mom's voice directing him. "Add 2 extra spoons of sugar. Lily always loved her food sweet." I floated to the kitchen doorway. Dad was placing a pancake on a plate. It was shaped like a heart. I never liked them that way, but ever since Lily died, that was the only way he made them. He said she loved heart shapes. Mom took the plate and set it in the center of the dining table with the reverence of an offering. "Go wake him up," she said to Dad, her voice sharp with impatience. "Don't let him make us late for buying the cradle." Dad put down the milk carton and walked toward my room. I followed him. He stood beside my bed, his hand hovering over me for a moment before he gently rested it on the blanket. "Noah, time to get up," he said softly. "We're going to buy the cradle today. You can come with us, okay?" The body on the bed didn't move. Dad's fingers trembled. He gave my shoulder a little shake. "Noah." Mom's voice cut through the silence from the living room. "What's taking so long? Is he pretending to be asleep again?" She stormed into the room and saw Dad frozen by the bed. Her temper flared. "I knew it. He's faking it. He just doesn't want us to buy a cradle for Lily. Forget him. Let's go. Lily is waiting." Dad didn't move. His gaze was fixed on my still form. "He's our son too," he said, his voice raw. "He is not." Mom shrieked. "My only child is Lily. He's the monster who killed her." She snatched Lily's photo from the desk and hurled it to the floor. The glass shattered, a shard slicing across Dad's hand. He didn't make a sound, just silently gathered the broken pieces and wrapped his bleeding hand in a tissue. The phone rang in the living room. It was my teacher from school. Mom answered, her voice instantly turning warm. "Hello, Mrs. Davis. Is this about Lily?" "Oh no, I mean, is this about Noah?" When the teacher asked why I hadn't been in school, Mom's tone turned to ice. "He's just skipping. Don't worry about him, Mrs. Davis. Let him run wild. He's a lost cause." After hanging up, she grabbed Dad's arm. "Come on. We can't let him ruin our day for Lily." Dad glanced back at my room, his feet hesitating for a second, but she pulled him away. Just as the front door clicked shut, I saw him quickly wipe his eyes. The house was silent, except for the steady tick-tock of the clock on the wall. I drifted back to my bedside and looked down at myself. My face was still round with baby fat, but my frame had become so thin and frail that my chin was a sharp point. My hair had been trimmed recently, not quite long enough to meet Mom's standards, not flowing and soft like Lily's. I remembered the last haircut. The barber had accidentally snipped off a little too much, and Mom had screamed at him, accusing him of ruining Lily's image. When we got home, she made me kneel for 2 hours, telling me I wasn't worthy of having hair like my sister's. Kneeling there on the cold floor, staring at Lily's picture, I felt a strange sense of detachment. I didn't even know who that girl was anymore. Dad and Mom came back that afternoon. They were carrying a beautiful pink cradle, embroidered with little princesses. Mom couldn't stop smiling. She placed it in the center of the living room. "Lily will adore this," she said to Dad. "She always loved sleeping with her princess dolls." Dad glanced toward my room. "Shouldn't we check on Noah?" he asked quietly. Mom's face instantly hardened. "Check on him for what? He'll come out when he's hungry." She sat beside the cradle, rocking it gently and humming a lullaby. Her eyes filled with a tenderness so deep it seemed to overflow. I floated closer, looking at the pink cradle. It was small and delicate. Lily would have loved it. Mom had promised to buy it for her birthday, but Lily was gone before that day came. Now the cradle was finally here, and its new owner was on her way back, in a different form. Mom suddenly looked up, as if sensing a presence, her eyes scanning the space where I was. I shot up to the ceiling. Her gaze swept over the empty living room, and she frowned for a moment before turning her attention back to the cradle. "Lily, Mommy is waiting for you," she whispered. "I'll never let you go again." I watched the soft curve of her cheek, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Mom was finally getting her Lily back, and the replacement could finally disappear. That way, everyone could be happy. On the third morning, a frantic knocking echoed through the apartment, loud enough to splinter the door. I floated into the hall as Mom opened it with an annoyed scowl. My homeroom teacher, Mrs. Davis, stood in the doorway. "Mrs. Williams," she said, her expression grave. "Noah has been absent for 3 days. My calls have gone unanswered, so I came to check on him." She tried to peer inside. "Is Noah home?" Mom's face turned sour. She blocked the doorway. "He's here. Just throwing a tantrum, refusing to go to school. Don't you worry about him, I'll handle it." "This is about more than a tantrum," Mrs. Davis insisted, her brow furrowed. "Last week, some of his classmates told me Noah was being bullied. They said the other children were pulling off his clothes and throwing cold water on him. I wanted to discuss it with you, but I couldn't reach you." Mom reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "Don't you listen to those children's lies. I'm sure it was Noah who started trouble. He's been a malicious child from the start. He killed his own sister, and now he's trying to play the victim at school." Mrs. Davis's face darkened. "Mrs. Williams, I saw the bruises on Noah myself. They were fresh. And from what I understand, Noah was only trying to protect another student. He is a sweet, quiet boy who works very hard. You can't speak about him that way." "Sweet?" Mom shrieked, her voice echoing down the hall. "If he was so sweet, why is my Lily dead? He's a curse. I should never have let him live." Mrs. Davis, taken aback by the outburst, took a deep breath. "If this is your attitude, I'll have no choice but to contact Child Protective Services. Noah is a good child, and he doesn't deserve this. She turned and walked away. Mom continued to hurl insults after her until she disappeared down the stairs. Slamming the door shut, Mom trembled with rage. She marched to my room and kicked the door with all her might. Noah, look at the trouble you've caused. Now you've got teachers showing up at our door. Why don't you just die? I floated beside her, watching her face contort with fury. I suddenly remembered the river, when I was 4. Lily and I were in the water. I had grabbed her hand, holding on for dear life, but the current was too strong. It tore us apart. When they pulled me out, the first thing I saw was Mom, clutching Lily's lifeless body, her first words to me a broken scream. Why wasn't it you? Dad came out of his study and put a hand on her arm. That's enough. The neighbors will hear. His voice was low and strained. He hasn't eaten in 3 days. Let's just go in and see him. Mom shook him off. See him for what? He's not going to die. But this time, Dad didn't listen. He pushed the door open and went inside. Mom hesitated, then followed him in. Dad walked to the bed and pulled back the covers. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating my pale face, my purplish lips, and the dried stain of blood at the corner of my mouth. The sunlight was cruel. It didn't warm the room. It only highlighted the stillness of the boy on the bed. Dust motes danced in the beam of light that cut across his face, but he didn't blink. He didn't breathe. My father stood frozen, his hand still gripping the edge of the duvet. The fabric was cold. His knuckles turned white. Noah. The word was barely a whisper, a question asked to a room that had already given its answer. He reached out, his trembling fingers brushing against my cheek. I watched from above as he recoiled, a sharp intake of breath hissing through his teeth. It was the touch of marble, smooth, hard, and unmistakably absent of life. Martha, he choked out. Martha, call an ambulance. My mother was standing by the door, her arms crossed, her expression one of practiced annoyance. Oh, stop it, David. He's holding his breath. He used to do this when he was 3. She marched over, her heels clicking on the floorboards with aggressive purpose. Noah, stop this nonsense right now. Do you hear me? Mrs. Davis is gone, you can stop acting. She reached out to grab my shoulder, to shake me as she had done 1,000 times before. But the moment her hand made contact with the stiff, unyielding flesh of my arm, her sentence died in her throat. The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. He's cold, she whispered, looking at her hand as if it didn't belong to her. Dad finally moved. A guttural sound tore from his chest, part sob, part roar. He fell to his knees beside the bed, burying his face in the mattress near my hand, the hand still clutching the rag doll. No, 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 he chanted, rocking back and forth. Please God, no. Mom backed away, step by slow step, until her back hit the wardrobe. Her eyes were wide, fixed on the empty pill bottle that had rolled out from under my pillow when Dad moved the blanket. The label was faded, but she recognized it. It was her bottle, the one she had lost years ago. He took them, she murmured, her voice trembling. He actually took them. I floated near the ceiling, watching them. I felt a strange sense of pity, not for myself, but for them. They looked so small from up here. So broken. I did it, Mom, I thought. I finally listened to you. The paramedics arrived in a blur of static noise and heavy boots. They were professional, efficient, and grim. There was no rush, no shouting of clear, or frantic CPR. They checked for a pulse, shone a light into my fixed pupils, and then quietly packed their bags. Time of death looks to be approximately 48 to 72 hours ago. The coroner said to the police officer writing in a notebook. Rigor has passed. Decomposition is starting. 3 days. The officer looked at my parents, who were sitting on the couch in the living room. You didn't check on your son for 3 days? Dad was staring at his hands, his face gray. We thought he was sulking. He was quiet. He was always quiet. Mom was rocking the empty pink cradle. Back and forth. Back and forth. She wasn't looking at the officer. She was looking through him. He killed Lily, she said suddenly, her voice flat. He let go of her hand. It should have been him. The officer stopped writing. He looked at his partner, then back at the woman rocking the cradle. The disgust on his face was barely concealed. Ma'am, your son is dead. This isn't the time. He's not my son, she snapped, her eyes flashing with a sudden, terrifying lucidness. My son died in that river with my daughter. This was just a mistake. Dad stood up then. It was a slow, painful movement, like an old man rising from a deep sleep. He walked over to Mom and for the first time in my life, he didn't try to placate her. He slapped her. The sound was sharp, like a cracking whip. The room went dead silent. The police officers took a step forward, hands hovering near their belts, but they didn't intervene. Mom stopped rocking. Her hand went to her cheek, her eyes wide with shock. He was 7, Dad whispered, tears streaming down his face. He was 7 years old, Martha. And he died alone in that room while we bought furniture for a ghost. He turned to the officers. Take me to the station. I want to confess. I killed him. I let it happen. They buried me next to Lily. It was a rainy Tuesday. The sky wept the tears my mother refused to shed. There were only a few people there, Mrs. Davis, my dad, a few neighbors who whispered behind their hands, and my grandmother who had flown in from the coast. Mom didn't come. She claimed the doctor told her the stress was bad for the baby, bad for new Lily. I sat on my own headstone, swinging my legs. It was weird seeing my name carved in granite. Noah Williams. Beloved. Liar. I whispered, tracing the word beloved. Dad looked like a skeleton in a suit. He stood over the grave long after everyone else had left. He was holding the rag doll. He hadn't let it go since they took my body away. I'm sorry, Noah, he sobbed into the rain. I'm so sorry. I was a coward. I should have taken you away. I should have left her. He fell to his knees in the mud, ruining his suit trousers. I saw her feeding you the pills that night. Years ago. I stopped her, but I didn't leave. I thought I could protect you by staying. But I just watched you drown in this house, didn't I? I wanted to touch his shoulder, to tell him it was okay. Dad, I'm not in pain anymore. The water isn't cold here. But my hand passed through him like mist. He stayed there until dark. When he finally stood up, he left the rag doll on the grave, tucked under a plastic cover to keep it dry. Goodbye, buddy, he whispered. The house became a tomb. Dad moved into the guest room. He stopped eating. He stopped going to work. He spent his days sitting in my room, staring at the empty bed. Mom, on the other hand, flourished. Her belly grew round. She hummed as she painted the nursery pink. She bought dresses. She spoke to the air, telling Lily about the world she was coming back to. But the house remembered me. It started small. My favorite book, The Velveteen Rabbit, would fall off the shelf in the middle of the night. The smell of the cheap soap I used would waft through the hallway. Then it got specific. One night, Mom was sitting in the nursery, folding tiny socks. You're going to look so beautiful in these, Lily, she cooed. Suddenly, the rocking chair in the corner began to move. Creak, creak. Mom froze. David? Is that you? No answer. Just the rhythmic creaking. I was sitting in the chair. I wasn't trying to scare her. I just liked the rhythm. It was soothing. Stop it. Mom hissed at the empty air. Go away, Noah. You're dead. Leave us alone. She threw a pair of socks at the chair. They passed through me and landed on the floor. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I stood up and walked over to the cradle. The pink one she had bought the day I died. I reached out and pushed it. The cradle rocked violently, slamming against the wall with a loud thud. Mom screamed. She scrambled backward, knocking over a lamp. David. David. Dad ran in, his eyes wild. What? What is it? He's here. Mom shrieked, pointing at the cradle. He's trying to hurt the baby. He's jealous. He wants to kill Lily again. Dad looked at the still rocking cradle. He didn't look scared. He looked hopeful. Noah, he whispered. The rocking stopped. Dad walked into the room, ignoring Mom's frantic pleas. He sat on the floor near where I was standing. If you're here, Dad said softly, I want you to know I miss you. Every second. Mom gasped. How dare you? He's a monster. Dad turned to her, his eyes cold and dead. The only monster in this house, Martha, is you. And God help me, I'm the monster who enabled you. 3 months later, Mom went into labor. It was a stormy night, thunder rattling the window panes. Dad drove her to the hospital in silence. I sat in the back seat. The labor was difficult. The doctors were shouting. The heart rate monitor was beeping erratically. The cord is wrapped around the neck, a nurse yelled. We need to do an emergency C-section. Mom was screaming, but not in pain. She was screaming a name. Lily. Don't leave me, Lily. I drifted into the operating room. I saw the baby. It wasn't Lily. It was a boy. When the doctor pulled him out, silence filled the room. The baby wasn't crying. He was blue. Resuscitate, the doctor barked. Mom was drifting in and out of consciousness. Is she okay? Is my Lily okay? Dad stood by the warmer, watching the doctors work on the tiny, lifeless body. He looked numb. Time of death. The doctor began, then paused. Wait. We have a pulse. A weak cry pierced the air. The baby lived. When they brought the baby to Mom in the recovery room, she looked at the bundle with glowing anticipation. Let me see her, she whispered. Let me see my Lily. The nurse hesitated. Mrs. Williams, it's a boy. The world stopped. Mom's smile vanished. Her eyes went wide, filled with a horror so profound it looked like madness. No, she whispered. That's a lie. The doctor said it was a girl. It's Lily. It's a boy, ma'am, the nurse said gently, placing the baby in her arms. Mom looked down. She saw the face. And she screamed. It wasn't just that it was a boy. The baby had a birthmark. A distinct, port wine stain on his left cheek, shaped like a teardrop. I had the exact same birthmark. Mom shoved the baby away as if he were burning coal. Get it away. Get it away from me. It's him. He came back. She thrashed in the bed, tearing at her IVs. He tricked me. He stole Lily's place again. You little devil. Why won't you stay dead? Dad caught the baby before he could fall off the bed. He held his new son close, looking at the birthmark. Tears streamed down his face, but this time, they were different. Hello, Noah, he whispered to the baby. I looked at the baby too. I looked at the tiny, squalling thing that had just entered this world of pain. It wasn't me. I was still here, floating in the corner. That baby was a new soul, innocent and blank. But he carried a reminder, a mark to ensure he would never be forgotten. They named him Gabriel, but Mom never called him that. She called him it. Or sometimes when she was deep in her wine cups, she called him Noah with a sneer. She refused to touch him. She refused to feed him. Dad took a leave of absence and did everything. He learned to change diapers, to mix formula, to burp a baby. The house became divided. Mom lived in the master bedroom with the door locked, surrounded by Lily's old things. Dad and Gabriel lived in the living room and the kitchen. My room, the room where I died, remained closed. I watched Gabriel grow. He was a happy baby despite everything. He had Dad's eyes. But Mom was deteriorating. She started seeing me everywhere. She would wake up screaming that I was standing at the foot of her bed, dripping wet. She told the neighbors I was putting glass in her food. She told the mailman I was hiding in the mailbox. One afternoon, when Gabriel was 6 months old, Dad went to the store. He left Gabriel in the playpen in the living room. Mom came out of her room. She hadn't showered in days. Her hair was matted. She was holding a pillow. She walked toward the playpen. You think you're clever, she whispered to the giggling baby, coming back in a new skin. But I know it's you, Noah. I know you ate Lily in the womb. She reached into the playpen. She didn't pick him up. She placed the pillow over his face. I screamed. I screamed with all the spectral energy I had. No. I flew here. I concentrated every ounce of my will into my hands. I couldn't touch her, but I could touch the environment. I grabbed the chandelier above the playpen. I swung on it. The chain groaned. Mom pushed down on the pillow. Gabriel's muffled cries stopped. Snap. The chandelier broke free from the ceiling. It crashed down, not on the baby but right next to Mom. The explosion of glass and metal sent shards flying. A large piece of crystal sliced across her arm. She shrieked, recoiling, dropping the pillow. Gabriel gasped, coughing, his face red and tear-streaked. The front door burst open. Dad dropped the groceries. He saw the broken chandelier, the pillow on the floor, and Mom bleeding, standing over the gasping baby. He didn't ask questions. He didn't hesitate. He walked over, picked up Gabriel, and walked out the door. He put the baby in the car. He got in the driver's seat. He locked the doors. Mom ran out onto the porch, blood dripping from her arm. David, where are you going? Don't leave me with him. David. Dad started the engine. He looked at her through the window. I'm done, Martha, he said. I'm saving this one. He drove away. I sat in the back seat, next to Gabriel's car seat. I watched my mother shrink in the rearview mirror until she was just a speck, alone in the house of ghosts she had built. Dad didn't go back. He filed for divorce. He got full custody. The court granted it easily after the psychiatric evaluation Mom failed. She was institutionalized a month later. They said she was a danger to herself and others. She spent her days rocking a pillow, singing lullabies to a daughter who had been gone for years, in a world where time had stopped. Dad and Gabriel moved to a small house near the ocean. It was bright and airy. There were no pink cradles. No strains. Dad put a picture of me on the mantelpiece. Not the one Mom hated. A candid one, where I was laughing, holding a dripping ice cream cone. This is your big brother, Noah, Dad would tell Gabriel as he grew up. He was brave. And he saved you. I stayed with them for a while. I watched Gabriel take his first steps. I watched him say his first word, Dada. But I felt myself fading. The tether that held me to this world, the pain, the need to be seen, was loosening. One day, when Gabriel was 4 years old, the same age I was when I drowned, he was playing on the beach. He stopped building his sandcastle and looked at the empty space beside him. Hi, he said. I smiled. I was barely a shimmer of light now. Gava, whisparat. Are you going now? He asked, tilting his head. Yeah, I think it's time. Okay, he said simply, accepting the invisible world as only children can. Tell Lily I said hi. I froze. You know about Lily? Yeah, he pointed to the ocean. She's waiting for you. She says she's sorry she let go of your hand. I looked toward the water. And there, standing on the waves, bathed in a light that wasn't from the sun, was a little girl in a floral dress. She was waving. My heart, or whatever was left of it, soared. I looked back at Dad. He was sitting on a bench, watching Gabriel, a look of peace on his face that I hadn't seen in years. Goodbye, Dad. You did good this time. I turned and ran toward the water. My feet didn't sink. I ran across the waves, faster and lighter than I had ever been. I took Lily's hand. It was warm. Ready to go home, Noah? She asked. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. We walked into the light together, leaving the shore behind. And for the first time, the water didn't scare me at all.